Yeah.
Yeah, so
Tell
that
me.
is my
Yeah.
stock answer.
Uh, Tell me this. Did you like Winternight Trilogy that I read, and I read it fairly recently, and I finished it back to back to back. It's very grades are very good. I got several recommendations on the internet, and but were you like when it first came out? Were you scared maybe of the opinion of the fans? Were you like, I don't care, I'm just glad it finished? What was your reaction? And later to the positive praise, what was your mindset?
I mean, I think I was mostly scared because if the book didn't have an audience, then I wouldn't be able to keep writing them professionally. Um, after like your publisher is trying to, at the end of the day, like sell books for money and then pay you. So my biggest fear was that I just would have it flop and then those 3 books would be my only books and I would just, go do something else, which would have been fine. But that was my big fear. And of course, you want people to like your books, like you're human. You want people to read them and enjoy them. You want to see yourself read. You want, to feel like you accomplished something. And so, I mean, I was definitely nervous. I also, again, expectations are death. So I did a lot of like turning off my email, turning off social media. After Bear the Nightingale came out, I went to Europe and just like couch surfed for months. With only a very vague contact with sort of like stateside things, which actually really helped. Because I was focusing on the next book. I was um, just for my mental health, trying not to fixate on what was happening with the books in the US. And I was obviously glad they did work out. They worked out. It was great. I did get the chance to write more, which was a good feeling. And yeah, it did work out. But there were certainly some nights when I was like stressed about it, like, wow, what if nobody likes it? I had a particular Russian professor in school that I was particularly afraid would hate it, and he did actually hate it. That's cool. Um,
Yeah, for real?
yeah, sure. He was like, "What is this nonsense?"
Wow.
That's okay.
But why? Why didn't you like it?
Because I took history and mythology and made a strange Americanized mishmash, which okay,
But
fair.
but yeah, I mean, by the way, your is least Americanized version of these kind of when you're talking about especially Russian, influence on the pop culture and media in the U.S. Yours is least like there is definite research that you've done, and that is. And by the way, if it's not obviously it isn't supposed to be historically correct because it's historical fiction,
Of
so.
course, of course. Like, there's this argument to make, but you're not going to argue with your professor. You're just like, I'm sorry, I did my best. And like, yeah, I did want. I'd spent 2 years in Moscow as a student back when you still could spend 2 years in Moscow as a student. Um, uh, yeah. I studied Russian. I read a lot of Pushkin. Like, I watched a lot of Soviet cartoons.
Wow.
Uh, so it all that kind of did. I came at it from that place.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that may be a similar situation in Russia because Montenegro is also Slavic countries that uh, we generally have some kind, let's say, dogma between elementary, high school, and even university professors of literature about fantasy novels. I think that 90% of professors skip mandatory Lord of the Rings because it's Tolkien's, it's fantasy, and they kind of just discard it.
Yeah, I mean, most of the professors in Montenegro haven't read a book that came out later than Ivo Andrić, 20th century beginning. Like, that's the latest they read.
Yeah, or read a book by a woman, or God forbid, read a fantasy novel. And the funniest thing is that sometimes people will like a famous literary author will kind of circle back and do something in the fantasy or science fiction realm, and it'll be like, oh, this groundbreaking work, and the entire science fiction community is like, yeah, it's robots. We've done we've yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? Like there's a disconnect in genre, which I hope is ending a bit. I do feel like there's fantastic work being done in genre right now, and I think it deserves serious readership. Like it just does. There's so many wonderful writers um who deserve to be studied and thought about
Yeah.
and parsed, whatever. So
We stay genuine, uncensored and unscripted, and we always will, as we have to order our usual. Share us and subscribe us, and stay tuned until the next Wednesday. Ikuzo!